Hey, what's going on, guys? SudoCatalyst here. This is the first entry in my video series of a tutorial for Console Creative in Fortnite. As you can see here, I am in the Creative Hub. This is, of course, the player rift. It's marked in gold. That's how you know it's yours. And this is the Creative Console. So we're going to press square to interact with it. And we get presented with this menu. You can see I have a lot of maps already made here, but we're going to make a new map today. In order to do that, we're going to press the R2, and it's going to show us this menu here, where we have a large option of different prefabricated islands that we can choose to build on. I think for the purposes of this video, we're going to do the nice, simple Meadow Island. I think we're going to create a capture the flag map. So, I'm just going to name that real quick. Just call it CTF. We're going to press square to confirm. Wait for that to load. Alright. So, we spawn in the skies, we can see here. We can survey the island that we have nice and barren so that we can put all sorts of assets down. But for the purposes of this video, what we're going to do is I'm just going to guide you through the very basics of how to control your character, how to control assets, how to use your phone, and so on and so forth. So what we're going to do right now is press the triangle button. And as you can see, the triangle button here gets into our creative menu. We have a little phone in our hand here, and as you can see, as I scroll over assets, they're highlighted in blue. But let's go over some of the more basic controls first. So you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, there are a list of several options. We have inventory, which will get you into the classic Battle Royale inventory. We have island settings, which is a quick sort of tool or menu to get you into the overview settings of your map. And we also have fly, so we can double tap the jump button to get our character to fly around the map. When flying, we can hold X to go up, and we can hold the right stick to go down. Another option that we have while flying is that we can toggle our collision. So what that means, when I fly into a rock wall, I collide with it. And you can see I cannot go through this rock wall no matter how hard I try. I cannot go through the rock wall. But if I press and hold the left stick, you can see now that my character has been outlined with blue, and I can very easily go through the rock wall and into the back rooms of the island. You will see why this is useful in later iterations of this tutorial series. But for now, we don't have to worry about the collision too much. The next option we have is our flight speed. So, as you can see now, I'm flying at a good pace, but I can double that and fly even quicker. I can turn that all the way down and travel at a snail's pace, and anything in between. I typically like to stick at around 5. It's not so fast that I'm blindingly fast, but it's also not so slow that I'm at a snail's pace. Another option we have is, as you can see, the heat map mode. I can turn it off, and you can see in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, it changes the color of the mini-map. We don't have any data being used up on this map right now, so the heat map, if we go into the map, is just going to look blue. As more data is used up on the map, what's going to happen is that there are going to be like yellow cube grids that spawn that show you the density. It's like a heat map, right? As it had said, heat map mode, actually it's what it's called. But similar to how a thermal camera goes from blue to red, this is similar and will show you what areas of your map are using the most amount of memory. Since we're in an empty map right now, we are not using really any memory at all, and it is just all blue. So that's just the basic movement settings and data that you can get, like the heat map. But now we're going to get a little more into the weeds, and we're going to try and manipulate assets. So what is an asset? An asset is anything like this tree here. It could be a building, it could be a wall. Any environmental model that we can place around the map and manipulate is an asset. Really, in game design, you know, any model that you render is an asset, but I'm just going to, for the simplicity of this video, I'm going to call props. It's essentially what is props assets. Again, if you look at the left-hand side of the screen, you can see even more options now, and it's actually changed. So if I deselect this asset, you can see a completely different set of options. So the first two options we see, and also when I put my phone away, the first option we're going to see is the copy. That is your right trigger. You're going to highlight an asset. You're going to click the right trigger, and that's going to copy that asset. If you click the right trigger again, that will paste it. The left trigger is the cut option. If we press down the left trigger on an asset, you'll notice that we cut that asset from its place. I'm going to press circle or exit, and it'll go back to its original place. But we can cut, and then if we press the paste, the right trigger, we can move that asset. So we can cut and paste and move assets around, or we can copy and paste and duplicate assets. All right. Also, just for, I'm going to kind of go down the command list a little bit here, but I think this is equally as important. If you're going to be cutting and pasting, you should probably know how to delete an asset as well, and that is left on the D-pad. So you're going to select an asset, and you're going to press left on the D-pad. You're just going to tap it, and that will remove that asset. So let's select an asset again. Now, we can use the D-pad, up and down on the D-pad, to push and pull our asset. So if we don't like where it is placed, but we just want to give it a little bit of a nudge, we can do that with the up and down. That's just the simple push and pull. The next options, going down the list, I'm starting from the top and I'm going down. We can see the bumper options that we have. The right and left bumper, rotate clockwise and rotate counterclockwise. So if I push this out, going up on the D-pad, and then I press the right bumper, you'll see that my asset is now spinning. Now if you notice, in the middle of this asset, there are two circles and a line. And that shows you in which direction your asset is going to be rotated. So we don't only have the option to rotate it clockwise and counterclockwise, we don't only have the option to spin it, we can also rotate it in other ways. So what we're going to do is we're going to tap the right D-pad control. And that's going to change, we had it in yaw if you're looking in the left menu. And if I tap left, it'll change to pitch. If I tap that again, it'll change to roll. Those are the three directions that you can rotate an asset. So we have yaw, which just kind of spins it as, you know, a way that one would normally suspect that you can spin something. We'll go to pitch, and now it's rotating on the X, or the Y axis, I'm sorry. And then we'll go to roll. Well, I suppose X and Y are very similar. So, as you can see, we have three options to spin this asset so we can get it however we like. We can have a sideways tree sticking out of the wall if we really like. So let's go back to that. Now, spinning the asset isn't the only option that you have available for your bumpers. You can press and hold the circle button to then enter the resize selection. As you can see here, I have all three axes selected for resize, and the right bumper grows, the left bumper shrinks. As you can see, because all three axes, the X, Y, and Z, are selected, it proportionally grows and shrinks. Now, similar to how I can change the direction that this asset spins, I can also change how it grows and shrinks. Right now, I have all of it proportionally growing, but I will tap right on the D-pad, and now only one side is going to grow or shrink. Now, of course, this makes a very silly looking tree, but for some assets this is very necessary to isolate one axis in which an asset grows. As you can see here, I can make it very tall, but it looks like a much different tree. So, descending down the list now, we have the reset size or reset rotation. So, I'll have this tree go upside down, and I'll have it go this way, and I'll have it go that way, and I'll have it go this way, and I'll have it go that way, and this way, and that way, and now I don't know how to get it back to where it was originally. I have an upside down tree, but I want a normal tree. I didn't mean to spin it. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold right on the D-pad, and now it's set to how it was originally oriented. That option also exists for resizing, so we're going to change by pressing and holding the circle button to resize, and we're going to make it some kind of silly shape like this. Well, I don't want a really wide tree. I want to go back. I didn't mean to grow it like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to press and hold on the right D-pad, and that's going to reset its proportions. Alright, moving right along to the next option, we have the drop toggle. So that is controlled by your triangle. It only has two settings, on or off. And when a drop toggle is off, I can place something in the sky, I can place it in the ground, and it will just sort of stay there. When I turn on the drop toggle, when I paste the asset, it'll sync right to the terrain. The only problem with drop, it's really good if you want to create a forest really quickly. The only problem is that sometimes it doesn't quite perfectly line up with the asset where it's meant to be on the ground. So you need to, on your own, cut it and then place it again. So that is the drop toggle. Now, one thing to consider when you have drop toggle on is that if you tell it to drop and you put it below the terrain, it didn't happen here, but what might happen is that sometimes it will drop, see here, I'm now underneath the map in the back rooms, and it dropped all the way down to the true asset bottom. So one problem that you might have is if you turn on, if you want this tree to be like a bush, for example, to look like a bush, sort of like this, but you have the drop selection on, sometimes what will happen is that it will just drop all the way down into underneath the map. So typically you want to have it above the terrain that you are going to have it drop on, rather than have it be below. This asset doesn't seem to be dropping below, but some do. Just something to watch out for. Alright. So now we have the grid snap options. What the grid snap does is, right now, as you can see, I am freely moving this asset throughout the map, and I do not have it snapping to the grid, if you will, and we'll see what that looks like. Again, I can freely move this around. There's no real restraints in how or where or what direction I can place this. As you can see, the same face is always facing me. But if I turn on the grid snap, now it is locked in one position, unless, of course, I rotate it. So the grid snap has several options. There's 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1. I'm going to use 1 for now because I think it's a little clearer to see. See how the bottom of this tree is always in line with the axis of the 4 squares? That is what the grid snap does. If we change to 32, it's still following that same algorithm. It's just the squares are so small that it almost looks like it's moving freely without a snap. What grid snap is good for? Typically, you're not going to be using grid snap for an organic object like a tree. You're going to use grid snap for something like a building, a wall, or any kind of man-made structure that you want to be symmetrically in line with other buildings or a road or something like that. So we're going to turn off the grid snap. Of course, grid snap is activated by tapping left on the D-pad. And if we just continually tap left on the D-pad, we will cycle through the different values of grid snap until eventually it turns off, in which we can go back into the cycle and select 32. So we're going to turn it off. Now, staying with right on the D-pad, now where before my character, I can turn my character's collision off with the left stick. I'm sorry, I said right on the D-pad. It is left on the D-pad. Where I can turn off the collision for my character, I can turn on and off the collision for assets that I place along the map as well. So we're going to hold left on the D-pad, and now it collides into everything. We're going to turn that off just to show you, look, this tree can go into walls, but now we're going to hold left on the D-pad. It collides into everything, and now it will refuse to go into that wall. We're going to have it only collide into terrain, so now it can go through, other assets, but it will not go through terrain. Typically, I don't have things collide with anything. It almost seems like they naturally have a collision with terrain, but if you are to override that with cutting it and sinking it into the ground, right, it's like a strange hybrid collision everything kind of naturally has. Anyway. Alright. So let's see. And I think that's just about everything for manipulating an asset with just the tools you have available, just the settings that you have available with you and your phone and the asset. So that about does it. See you next time. And I will be picking off in part 2, right where we left off. And we will be covering how to place prefabs, devices, and other things. How to set game parameters and all those other good things. So see you next time.